Most of us have heard of crypto and blockchain. It's a trillion-dollar plus economy that took shape over the past decade and transformed multiple sectors. Our guest today has traversed his journey from the traditional finance to the world of decentralized finance. One additional feather to his profile is that he recently turned into an author of a book called Crypto Titans, which uncovers the journey of the evolution of the crypto technology and the associated economy. I'm thrilled to be joined by Markus Thielen, head of research with one of the largest crypto investment firms. Welcome, Markus. Welcome to Switching Gears.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to have the conversation with you. So let's start with your personal journey, Markus. You spent close to 15 years in the mainstream finance world, and then you pivoted into crypto. Would love to know what was the inspiration behind it, what drove you into crypto?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think, finance used to be very exciting too. So I always knew I'm going to, start in finance. I always thought I would end up in finance because finance, every day something happens, there's always some event that has market impacts and so on. But I think over the last few years, it was, less impactful. And I think some of the stories just took a lot longer to play out, right? For example, debt ceiling or recessions usually take months, if not, sometimes years to play out. And I think the exciting moment with crypto is really something happens, it seems like every week, right? There's, some new token launched, some new projects launched, something is always happening. And I think, we all have to evolve a little bit. And I think this is just like a natural progression that you just kind of like use your skills that you have learned, build on top of it and do something, more exciting. And I think crypto is definitely very exciting these days.
That absolutely seems true. There is one or the other thing that goes on into crypto world every week. So let's go back to the origins of this crypto boom, that entire boom that happened. I believe it all started with the origin of Bitcoin coming into prominence or coming into existence. Could you share a bit into what is Bitcoin and why was it that big a deal that it drove such a big revolution?
Yeah, I think the story of Bitcoin officially starts 2008. But there has been a lot of groundwork being done already, during the years or actually the last 2 decades before. So a lot of kind of leading cryptographers have, kind of tried to solve really the payment system, the dual spending system. And I think that's kind of like the key revolutionary aspect. And, people have different versions. What is Bitcoin? And actually, it has changed over time. Everybody tends to quote the 21 million maximum Bitcoins that can be issued, but not many people actually talk about how Bitcoin itself has changed a little bit, right? A lot of things have been added to it, so more code can be added. We of course know from Ethereum that code can be edited and therefore smart contracts. But Bitcoin has taken a small step into that direction as well. So, but the key thing is really the double spending that Bitcoin has solved. That if you pay on one with your credit card on one merchant at the same time on another merchant, the merchants don't actually know that you have the money, and maybe it's there for Visa to match you, but usually Visa matches you like after like 2 or 3 days. But with Bitcoin, we know for sure that the person actually has the money. And I think people have tried to build various protocols on top of it, but it depends a little bit on the capacity and how Bitcoin is being upgraded. And again, I think the key thing is that Bitcoin has been upgraded over time a little bit, but this goes hand in hand with the miners who kind of control the upgrading cycle there as well.
Got it. And like you said, Bitcoin started with the currency, but there are some elements of programming into it, smart contracts that Ethereum brought into prominence. Could you talk a bit about that journey that crypto has come through? Would love to know from yourself, like how do you see that journey starting from 2008?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting because Satoshi Nakamoto, that everybody believes is the inventor of Bitcoin, and the real person or the real people behind it are still staying anonymous in the background. And they might also not be alive anymore because the communication has completely stopped. But I think when he started to release the white paper. There wasn't really a lot of interest in it because people have released so many white papers before, claimed they have solved, again, the double spending problem. But it took really some time, and I think it took really kind of like 6-7 months before people took this serious. But I think the key difference was really here was then also the code released that people could really run on their computers. And then people started to mine it a little bit, and Bitcoin prices traded just at a few cents initially, and then finally they traded at $1. And then over time, and I think it was really like in 2013, I think it was one of the key breakthroughs where you had some people, let's say in the US where it was all started, mining Bitcoin on their computers in their basement, and some were even so advanced that they connected like 3 or 4 or 5 computers and mining Bitcoin at the same time. And I think it was then that actually in China they really like discovered this and really scaled it, and they said, oh, if it works on 5 computers, why don't we have like 10,000 computers? And then they built these large mining farms, and then they also made these computers a lot more efficient. And I think this is, again, there was like another Bitcoin upgrade released. And this allowed these Bitcoin mining farms really to really explode and mine like a lot of Bitcoin at the same time. And this is when really China actually took control of the Bitcoin mining network.
Okay. Yeah. What's your theory? What was special about China? Why China or folks in China were one of the first ones to ride on this boom?
Yeah, I mean, there are actually several reasons. It's not a theory. It's really kind of, when you look at the history and the facts. So first of all, Tencent in 2003 issued a QQ coin. Not many people know this, but you could also pay over the internet with it. So some people in China were already familiar. And it was really the public, the PBOC, the central bank in China, who outlawed this in 2007. Because it also became like a phenomenon. So people were familiar with online payments already and were quite advanced. But the real reason was there was actually a CCTV documentary being broadcasted in March 2013 that really projected Bitcoin as the new form of money and as a future. And then people became a lot more familiar with it, and it was really at the same time where there was this breakthrough in the mining that happened by Chinese entrepreneurs basically. And then there were like some other instances where, and again, people are not really familiar with it, but Baidu, which is of course sort of the Google of China, started then to accept Bitcoin for some online payment services. And this really helped the price really to just massively ramp up, and the volume of Bitcoin being traded in China went from 1% to 60, 70, 80, 90% even at one point.
Wow. That's like single country dominating it all.
I'm sure you didn't know this.
And then they suddenly switched it off.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was just like too much where literally less than a year later, the central bank and the government tried to reverse it because it was just like too much speculation, and yeah, they reversed it. So
got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And I think building from there and diving a little bit into your book, and congratulations on the book launch of Crypto Titans. It's amazing the way you have brought together data, and you have gone back to the history to talk about the different booms, cycles that came. And we touched upon the China one. So overall, how do you see the maturity of the crypto space, Markus? It started with a single payment currency that it started, then Ethereum came in, that brought smart contracts, then the China factor that helped to grow. What after that, and how do you see the maturity of this space?
Yeah, I think one of the messages in the book, and it's really about the industry of the crypto market, and it really helps to understand who are the players, how the market and the industry has evolved, and it looks at these 4 crypto bull markets, 2011, 13, 17, and 21 that we had, and all the bull markets were driven differently, but they also had a little bit more of a technological improvement in it. And I think the key question I ask myself always, what if this works, right? Instead of just dismissing it. And I think it's very easy with technology to dismiss something new, because I think that's just kind of like human tendency to just being a little bit more skeptical. But what if this kind of works. And I think, right now, of course, the market is in a period where it's a little bit more consolidation, because we don't see any more upgrades right now. There's nothing instrumental. For example, Ethereum had like various upgrades in September and just recently, last month, but it's nothing really instrumental. Maybe there's more coming towards end of the year when there's another upgrade is coming, and this really like lowers the cost. And this has been also, for example, like key for other industries, right? Of course, streaming of podcasts, streaming of videos, and downloading data. Like 10 years, Netflix was like nothing almost, and it really only became big when really the streaming cost really went down a lot, right? And I think this had like a massive impact, of course, on mobile usage, outside of Wi-Fi systems, because it suddenly became more affordable. And this is something that might also happen to the crypto market by end of the year, where suddenly transaction costs become really minuscule, and then we can do actually a lot more.
Could you share with us about your educational background and your professional career?
Yeah, I went to management school in France, did an exchange program in India, and spent basically every summer working for a different bank, and was always like looking forward to work in finance, because every day the market changes. There's all news needs to be digested, and it's almost like a little puzzle that needs to be put together every day. And I thought that was like very exciting.
Interesting. So, and then you made a move to crypto, about 15 years of work experience into the mainstream finance. So what led to that transition?
Yeah, so in traditional finance, or TradFi as we say, I used to work for large hedge funds. I used to work for Millennium. I also set up afterwards my own hedge fund that I ran for a number of years. So I did some more entrepreneurial part of my career as well. And I wanted to just do something even more entrepreneurial. And I can think crypto is always, I think, a mixture really between, having your own business, because, the space moves so fast. And it happened that I got to know this Chinese crypto conglomerate, and they were looking for a chief investment officer. So I worked for them, and overseeing the crypto funds that they had, and being there on the investment side, and that's my way into crypto basically.
Okay. So what does it take to be, like you said, the chief investment officer for a crypto fund? Would love to know, like, what does it entail in terms of your day-to-day responsibilities?
Yeah, so in the previous role where I was the chief investment officer versus like the current role where I'm the head of research, it's really where you like analyze the markets, you're trying to understand what makes prices go up or down. And I think what's a little bit less understood, of course, is some of the regulatory impact that might have on the crypto market. And we're just trying to look at all those markets and trying to look for market inefficiencies, trying to, of course, automate a lot of the processes that we do, to data crunching and so on, and really just trying to be ahead of the market and seeing where the narrative is going.
Got it. And you recently published a book, congratulations on that, Crypto Titans, how trillions were made and billions were lost. Yeah. We'll dive deeper into the content of that, but just overall, how's the experience been of publishing a book?
Well, it's interesting when you go, to the bookstore and you see it there, or you're getting good feedback from people. Somebody sent me this morning, actually, like a picture on LinkedIn, and I publish quite frequently on LinkedIn. That was reading the book, and the feedback that you get there. But I think writing a book is actually a lot of work. Everybody will say this, but I think when you do it, it's really a lot of work. It's a lot of even before you write it, you have to write it. You look at all these, and it depends, of course, what style of book you do. But I did a very, I guess, a research-driven book. So I quoted like 631 references. So it's really, I think, again, a lot of history, but it goes through the topics like very quickly. And it's really, for me to understand how the crypto industry really worked, and I think it did really help me. But I think publishing a book and writing a book is really like a different animal and a different job.
I can imagine even publishing a LinkedIn article every week or every month can be a really daunting task for many of the people. I have seen a lot of the leaders in my network. They have an aspiration that I want to post about something, but it takes really a great effort. And publishing a book is an entirely different animal. So how long did it take for you to write the book?
So all in all, it took around 6 months. So it's relatively quickly because I had a lot of notes already about, certain events. Almost like a year ago, I was at the FTX conference in the Bahamas, and my former boss was on the same panel as my current boss, and with Suzu from 3 Arrows, which is like one of these crypto hedge funds that lost $10 billion last year. So there's like a relationship between some of those people, and it's again, I think being like part of the industry, I think gets you more insights, and I think it made it easier to write the book. But of course, there were a lot of facts that I needed to research myself, and I ran it by, of course, a lot of industry insiders or several industry insiders to reread the book or see what they think about it, and the feedback was like very good, and yeah, it was around like 6 months with everything, and
Well, great effort, and all the best as you have launched the book on Kindle, hard copy, as well as across multiple countries, I believe, right? It's available now.
Yeah, it's available on various platforms. It's in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle at the same time. And I just wanted to open it for everybody if they want to, rather have the digital version because they're living like far away in a country where maybe the publisher or Amazon doesn't deliver. Same as, if you want to go to the bookstore here in Singapore, you can get it here, in Orchard Road or wherever you want to go. So.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to get my hands on it and read it soon. So one of the things, Markus, since you have gone through the full cycle of starting with the traditional finance and then coming into the decentralized finance and the crypto world, what are some of your insights and learnings about for somebody looking to start into this space, into the crypto world? What are some of the basic foundational skills that one needs to have, and what are the good to have skills?
I think, these days, basic foundation is really some financial skills, some programming skills, and really good judgment, right? And good judgment you get from experience with, having really like a hard look, is this too good to be true? I think this is like some advice that worked 100 years ago and it still works. And I think what is really more advanced skills is if you can do really something programming in Solidity, which is a programming language of Ethereum. But you don't need to necessarily have this, right? It really depends on your role. But I would definitely advise everybody to get programming skills, be it Python or some others languages there. It needs to be a little bit more than Excel. And then really just like finance skills, because I think you see this now as well when you see what are the top ranked books, and a lot of the books are self-help on financial education, and I think this should be actually part of your curriculum in high school, right? Because everybody depends a little bit on their finances, so it doesn't really hurt for anybody to really look into it.
Great. So on the cost part, Markus, I think one of the things comes to my mind is, so we see there are layer ones like Ethereum, which definitely is really expensive to do any of the mainstream use cases. Then there are layer twos that have come up. So is there any theory that you might have, like eventually do we see layer one, and even there are multiple layer ones, right? Would there be some sort of consolidation happening, or do you see a world wherein we will have a lot of layer ones, layer twos, and these will kind of adapt to different use cases? And the reason I ask is not only from technical perspective, but even for the investors, like how should they start digesting this ecosystem?
Yeah, I would think there will be a consolidation, right? And I think this is very similar, I guess, to kind of the operating systems that we're using, for example, for computers. There's like a handful, but then that's it. And the same is like with currencies, right? There's like a handful, again, that really control most of the market. And I think that's very similar really for the crypto market. Some projects are a lot more than just a currency or just a token, right? There's more behind, and maybe you need them to really work with a protocol, engage with it. So that's why maybe you need the currency. But really for some chains really to sustain itself, I think they need to attract really a large number of users, and I think this will just naturally, from an operational perspective, it's just too difficult to engage with 10 different currencies with 10 different chains, and I think this is very similar in the crypto market.
Got it. And one of the things when we compare mainstream finance to crypto world is the institutional participation, which so far has been relatively low. So, and you are in the midst of all of this crypto investing space, advising a lot of clients. So how are you seeing the institutional participation at this point in time, and how do you see the progress?
Yes, so the market capitalization of crypto is around $1.3 trillion right now. At the peak, it was around 3 trillion. And I think institutional adoption needs, of course, a certain size. And if I think around like 1.5 trillion, I think then institutions initially came when we first crossed the 1.5 trillion. A lot of institutions were looking at it, some got approval. We of course have the Bitcoin futures and Ethereum futures trading in Chicago at the TradFi exchange there basically. And I think over time, these institutions have actually built their capabilities. So even during this bear market, there are still a lot of people looking into it. For example, Goldman Sachs has like 90 people looking into digital assets right now globally. So they have teams, across the world. So they are being active in it, and actually they're rebuilding or keep on building their capabilities even during the bear market. So I see a lot more information being sent out there, a lot more activities on events from them. And I think this is just like one example. And we're seeing, and of course they are kind of the extension of the institutional investor. So, and they wouldn't really build it if they didn't see demand happening. And I think we have seen also over the last kind of 2 years that BlackRock was looking into it, getting approval for their funds. But the key thing is, of course, regulation. And I think regulation has been lacking a little bit, setting the level playing field. But I think there's more progress being done with some jurisdiction being more active, from Hong Kong, of course, what we have seen. The Middle East is, of course, very active. There's also more debate and discussions, in London with the FCA there. And I think this is very key because London is still a large financial institutional asset management place. And we just have to see what comes out of there. But I think demand is there and interest is there, but it needs to have a certain market cap for those institutions to come in.
Got it. On the regulations front, and this is the hot topic right now, generally the entire world looks up to the US to see what regulations they come up with, and then almost it's like replicating the same across the globe with some additions about privacy or few other elements. So in this space, do you see a world wherein some of the other jurisdictions, like you mentioned a couple of places, right, Hong Kong, Middle East or London, could it rebalance the center of power in a way, the crypto world?
Well, the large pools of capital are still in the US, and a lot of pension funds and endowment funds in the US have exposure to the crypto market. It might be through, private investments, it might be through other investments, it might not be directly through the token market, but through the underlying companies that are really building the crypto space. But for them to invest, they need a slightly different level playing field, as I was just, saying. And I think we're seeing, other jurisdictions trying to make an effort. But again, the large pools of capital are still in the US. And unless the US changes, it will be very difficult for other regions to attract really sizable capital. Because you have a lot of pension funds spread out, in various states in the US with like $100 billion you have never heard of. Versus some investors, of course, that are much smaller, be it in Hong Kong or be it in other jurisdictions that are more friendly. But I think you can map the world and you can see which jurisdiction trying to make an effort and trying to attract investors. Also in light of a digital passport that people are offering, or some countries are offering. And yeah, I think we just have to wait and see a little bit.
Got it. And I think your book is interesting from another perspective, that you talk about not only the wealth creation, like you talk about trillions of dollars are made, like this $1.5 trillion industry, but also hundreds of billions of dollars that got lost. Could you talk us through, when we look at some of these huge failures that happened, were there any common patterns in these? that one should be aware of it in going forward in future, whether as a technologist entering into the space or as an investor?
Well, I think, yes, there are, various common patterns. Of course, some people get always corrupt with more money and more greed. I think this is just, for some people, like part of human nature. But of course, the other key factor is that in TradFi, all the different segments of the market are really like spread out. There's a custodian, there's an exchange, there's a prime broker, there's your broker. These are all like separate entities really that you don't see under one roof. Versus in crypto, it seems to be, for example, like FTX did like everything for you. They held your money, they took your money, they invested your money, they gave your money to somebody else, and it was not your money anymore. And some of those I guess some of those firms like Celsius, they clearly had in their terms of service that if you send us any coins, they're ours. And this is what actually a judge confirmed. And it's really like reading the fine print and yeah, I think so I think that's a very important question. I think a lot of people have not read the fine print. For example, Celsius clearly stated, if you send us any crypto, that's ours. People have also been, of course, being poisoned by the greed and trying to make money. And I think you can also argue that some people were even pushed by the media to appear wealthier than they are. And I think there have been a lot of cutting corners, unfortunately. And I think this has been the way for a lot of crypto exchanges to grow by not doing proper KYC. And I think it was fine until a certain point, until really the regulator started to look into it a little more closer and really build up also their resources. But I think, again, it's the main problem is that the crypto market itself is really not very much segmented into different entities. And this really means that on the one side, you have exchanges in crypto doing everything for you, versus in TradFi, it's broken down into who's your custodian, who's your prime broker, who is your broker, who is providing you leverage, who is doing all these different things. And then, of course, there is the exchange. But in crypto, the exchange does everything for you. And I think that needs to be separated. And I think that's where we're going, where we're already seeing some of those firms that are offering those products. They're trying to spin out their custody product. They're spinning out another part and trying to like separate it, because otherwise there's just no real control. And in the TradFi, of course, you have the big clearing firms in between that guarantee that the trade will actually settle, which of course we have seen in crypto. There's no guarantee.
Right, got it. And good thing is now we are seeing some of these developments happening with a few of the prime brokers coming into existence. So if we assume that everything goes right, there are some regulations that come in, and we have a well-structured system in place, where do you see this crypto space headed, let's say in the next 10 to 15 years? Do you see a world wherein it could be one and the same thing, the finance and the crypto finance becoming one and the same, or do you see them as running as two parallel worlds?
I mean, that's actually interesting, because some people always believe that TradFi has to change towards crypto, and now it's the other way around, because TradFi has a regulation and crypto, to be accepted, needs to move the other way. But I think, to me, crypto is just like an extension of the ever-evolving trend of really that technology is really cutting out the middleman. And I think this is what we have seen in all other industries. And I think in TradFi, it's still kind of holding up a bit. There's a lot of middlemen. And I think crypto is really like instant settlement, so we don't need all the large back office operations anymore. But again, it needs to be a little bit all separated in different entities. But we're seeing these large TradFi companies entering the crypto space and providing those services and being ready. And I think the key question really that I ask myself, if you would have bought Apple shares 20 years ago, you would have had no idea about the iPhone, you would have no idea about the App Store. And with all this money that is really entering the crypto space, being from venture capital investors or from other investors and from retail traders, for example, some of the money will be used to really find some interesting projects that actually maybe make a difference. And I think it's very key to kind of just be a little bit up to date with the industry and not dismissive. I mean, what if this works, right? What if suddenly it all changes? Because again, we can see this in all other industries, so why wouldn't really this evolve in crypto as well? And again, that's why I look at the Apple example, because again, 20 years ago you would have had no idea that in a few years you would have had the iPhone, and just think how much our life has changed with all these apps and podcasts and everything. Before would have not been possible.
Indeed, that can't be denied. And given this potentially a huge future that crypto holds for the financial markets, but even beyond that, as somebody who have made a transition from the mainstream finance into crypto relatively early in this entire evolution cycle, what would you say, like what are some of the critical skills that people would need or they should start acquiring to get equipped for a world wherein crypto becomes one of the major sources of employment, one of the major sources of value creation?
Well, we have around, there are 420 million people holding cryptocurrencies in the world. So let's say around 5%. It's small, but it's still a sizable number. And I think we're seeing this more and more in job advertisements, that you need some crypto skills or some experience. Of course, there's a lot of online courses where you can, beef up your skills, be it technology skills or marketing skills. Either one of those is, very, very important. Some people learn Solidity really to try to program smart contracts and everything. Others are really just on the marketing side. But I think a key aspect is to really just to try to understand the industry, because that might really help you to see where it's going.
Interesting. So you had an exchange program in India. Would love to know which school was it and how was your experience in India?
Yeah, so while I was studying in France, I went on an exchange program in India, in IIM Ahmedabad. And the idea was that I wanted to work in Asia, I wanted to come over to Asia, but of course I didn't speak Chinese, so I could not go to China. But of course I could go to India, and India has also some very good universities. And I think the interesting aspect in India is India has actually 100 million crypto users apparently. So it's by the numbers, it's like the largest country. And of course, people in India are highly educated. They speak English, and I think it could be that over the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot more projects coming out of India because they're just the sheer amount of people really being educated and that are speaking English, really, being able to really conquer a little bit the world. So I'm actually quite positive about it. And, even I went there a long time ago, it seems now. And back then, of course, the demand was more on the traditional finance for people to join. But I'm seeing actually more and more people in India being quite interested in crypto.
Got it. And Markus, we talked about a lot of the investment and the financial use cases of crypto. Would love to know, how do you see these technologies panning out in the day-to-day world? For example, we had some really great innovations happened in NFTs, decentralized finance, right? So, are there any examples that you would think that which go beyond just the financial use cases?
Yeah, of course. Anything that has to do with personal identification. That's easily transported. Some people lose their passports. While they travel, but of course, if you have an NFTs, then it's easy to pull out. And I think we had the opportunity during the COVID crisis that the government could have issued the COVID certificate also as an NFT, because then it could have been universally been accepted and easily, of course, transported. So every time you cross a border, there's no need to pull out this paper sheet. It could have been a globally accepted certificate, and I think this would have made the adoption a lot easier. And because everybody was sort of impacted by this in the world, so you could have brought easily a few billion people into the the NFT, which is just nothing else than a non-fungible token, but basically a certificate of authenticity. And I think this could have actually made a big change in people being brought into the industry.
Interesting. And the example you quoted about somebody losing passport and the hassle one goes through. So I think that just reminds me of a personal anecdote. 6 of us, we were traveling to in the Bay Area in the US, and somebody broke into our car, got all our bags, laptops, but the worst thing was they also got our passports. That was a big hassle just to get those passports issued again. So I wish there's a day that comes very soon wherein we don't need to worry about the physical documents, and these documents are internationally recognized across the boundaries of any country.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Lovely chatting with you, Markus. Thanks for the conversation and thanks for taking your time.
Okay, thanks for having me.